to record?
I haven't even gotten lights or sound done or anything.
Okay.
Maybe I really don't know if people want to hear about this.
They really do.
I really think this might be a bad idea.
Let's not tell them.
Hey, everybody. Um, Welcome back to Reason Rises. I'm just going to tell a short story tonight and, um, yeah, go over some stuff. I really debated whether this is something I should even talk about, but it's an incident that happened today. It's relevant to what's going on in our country, and um, I just think that somehow there's a teaching moment in here. So I'll get right to it. Family and I are in the small town that we live in Arizona. We're going to Walmart, and by the family and I mean me, my wife, and my 10-year-old daughter. My 14-year-old's at cheer practice, so she's not with us. And I leave the wife in the car. The 10-year-old and I go into Walmart. We get our shopping done. We just needed to grab a few things. We come out. Um, my daughter gets into the car. The windows are down, so they can hear what's going on. But so far, I'm at the car. I'm about to put my groceries and stuff into the trunk. I'm starting to load stuff up, and I hear a kerfuffle behind me, right? I hear some kind of a parking lot argument going on. I turn around and in my row, right where I'm parked, but at the head of the row is a white minivan coming this direction, and coming this direction is a big red truck, right? And they're screaming at each other. And the disagreement is that one thinks they're going the correct way down the parking lot row. The other person thinks they're going the correct way. The minivan has, uh, I'm just going to say it, it was, well, she was a 40 or 50 something white woman. There's a handicap ramp on the van. The van's all messy inside, like you would, like lots of types of folks. But in any event, super messy on the inside. The truck is a nicer, newer red truck coming down. They're screaming at each other. I turn around. It's starting to get loud. It's turning into like a thing in the parking lot. I have a habit of getting myself involved in situations like this, usually to de escalate or to handle the whole thing, tell the people to go their separate ways, whatever. So as I'm walking up and listening, the woman is screaming at the guy, "Stop being a child. You're an idiot. You're going the wrong way. You need to back up and let me get out of here." The guy is also yelling. I can't see him, so I don't know what he looks like. He's coming the opposite direction. He's saying, "You're an idiot. You're going the wrong way. Ma'am, will you please just back up and let me get into my spot and then you can get out of here?" Which, in any event, as I'm walking up, I think the woman is correct. I'm not paying attention to which direction both vehicles are going. I think the woman is correct. So I actually walk up with the intention to tell the gentleman, "Hey man, listen to the lady, back up, let her get out of here. You're going the wrong way." As I'm walking up, I actually realize the woman's in the wrong. She's going the wrong way on the row. He's trying to come in the correct way on the row. She's yelling at him, "Stop being a child. Grow the fuck up. You're an idiot. You're the one going the wrong way down the row." She's flat out wrong. He's trying to go the right way. So I yell at the lady, "Hey, calm down, ma'am. He's coming the right way. You're going the wrong way. You need to back up and let him in." Now she's looking and screaming at both of us. Now she's telling me off. She's telling the guy off. I'm yelling at her still. I'm yelling back, "You are the child. You are the one who won't act like an adult. You're going the wrong direction down the down the parking lane. You need to back up and let him get into the spot." Right about then, I walk up to not get in her face or anything, but I walk up basically to her window because we're kind of screaming across the lot. It's a lot better if I get close and just, you know, lower my voice, whatever. As I'm walking up to her window, she's just about to keep screaming at me, and she glances down at my waistline and she notices that I have my sidearm on. At the exact same time she notices that, I remember that. Now I'm always aware when I'm armed, but it never occurred to me that my weapon would even enter into this melee. Like I'm just being a human being. I have no intention of my weapon being involved, right? But at my Walmart in my town at night, especially during this particular political time, I am wearing my sidearm. So she notices, I it comes to the front of my mind, and I immediately go, "Oh no." Like I don't want this lady freaking out, you know. So I immediately like tone down my stuff and decide I'm not yelling at this lady anymore. Just then, I apparently convinced her when she glanced at my waistline. She starts reversing to let the guy come the correct way and park, but she keeps yelling at him. You are the one that needed to grow up. You fucking. This is crazy. This throws me just into. I have not heard that word used in a hateful way outwardly, rarely in my life, except when I was living in certain neighborhoods in California. I've never heard it like this in anger in a parking lot altercation in my own town. And she's apparently unafraid of saying that in front of me. Now she sees me, she knows I'm wearing a sidearm. She assumes, I'm sure, that I'm, on her side, at least politically. So she's not afraid to keep saying it. So she's calling the guy the N word. I start yelling at her, "You don't use that word. That's ridiculous. I can't believe you said that to this guy. What have you?" She finally backs up. The guy gets to park. The lady pulls away, still screaming and yelling and obscenities and whatever. She's finally gone. The guy parks. He gets out. He doesn't acknowledge me. He doesn't say thank you, nothing like that. But when he gets out, I notice he actually is a black guy. I thought I didn't know she was using it as an epithet. I really didn't. I thought she was using it as an expletive, but I did not realize she was using it as an epithet. I didn't know that the guy was black. So he gets out, he's black. Regardless of what color he is, I say, "Hey man, I was on your side." He says, "Thank you." He starts to walk away to go into the store. And I said the way that she was acting was beyond unacceptable or something to that effect. He says, "Thank you, man." And then I say, the fact that she used the N word is absolutely beyond anything. I'm so sorry that you had to hear that. He pauses for a second and kind of looks at me and says, "Okay, thanks. Have a good night." And just walks away. And it's then that I realized he didn't even hear her say the N word. He didn't even know that she had yelled half of what she yelled. But in basically almost nothing that I did helped the situation, except that I got it resolved, like physically. But it was, I don't know, it was a bittersweet victory, I guess I should call it. Um, I freaked somebody out because I had my sidearm on. And on the other side, I tell a guy who didn't even know that he was called the N word that he was called the N word. Like he could have gone to sleep tonight not knowing that. And I'm the one that made him aware of that. That all really sucks. So, anyway, obviously, altercation done. I get in the car, we're driving away. I'm talking to my wife, and I'm thinking about the area that we live in. And I'm going to tell a couple of stories, but this is just kind of about the world that we find ourselves in now, the world that's been created by our leaders, and you can acknowledge it or not acknowledge it, but you can't deny what I'm about to say. So, firstly, 3, 4 years ago, shortly after we got married, so this would have been 2001, 2000, or excuse me, 2021, 2022, something like that. My wife and I made friends with a couple that we met here in our very small town. And our town is extremely small. The town we actually live in is one road in, one road out. It's tiny. There's not even a single stoplight and very few stop signs. So, but we make friends with this couple at a local bar, and they're amazing. They're perfect. They're wonderful to hang out with. Me and the guy have almost an identical sense of humor. We're we just mesh. We just match. Everything about us does. And my wife gets along with his wife, and the people that they hang out with the first night that we go over to their house are all really cool. We have a ton of fun. We do some stuff that we haven't done in a long time, like some drinking games, whatnot. Have a fantastic time. So much so that we wind up going over to their house all the time over the next couple of weeks. Like we just kind of turned into a fixture at their house almost immediately. So much so that I parked my motorcycle there a couple of nights, like without even thinking twice about it. Like just kind of treated it like a second home. We were really hanging out there a lot. It was like our third place. And one time we were hanging over there, and two of the guys who we had met many times and hung with many times over that 2 or 3 week period used the N word just openly and brazenly, hard R, just like it was the thing to do. And my wife and I realized that our kids had been hanging out with these people and getting to know their kids. And we, when we left that night, we kind of decided that we were just uncomfortable going over there anymore. Not so much because, I mean, we're free speech advocates. So, not so much because we, um, well, the reason was because we felt like we would be dragging them down. Like we would be taking the atmosphere down because they can't talk the way they want to talk in front of us. And we were not going to be able to avoid explaining that we're not comfortable with this kind of talk. So we just kind of stopped going over all of a sudden. When we ran into him later on, I'd love to explain how the conversation went. But each of us, in our own way, told each of them in separate interactions, here's why we don't come over to your house anymore, is because you guys have people over who are comfortable saying the N word, and you're apparently comfortable with it too, and we just can't have our kids around that. And it's not something we want to be around. Those are a couple of stories that are pertinent. The third one is we spend a lot of time at local lounges. I wouldn't call them bars necessarily. I guess they are, but they serve food and they've got nice patios. And we're not just hanging out at dive bars. But there's a couple that we hang out at enough to be called regulars. We know everybody who hangs out there. Everybody knows us by first name when we walk up. Over the last year or so, but definitely over the last 7 years, um, we've, well, I'm going to switch from we to I. I've noticed the people around me are perfectly fine using that word. They're perfectly fine using the N word. It just without even checking or knowing whether it's okay with the people around them. They openly are using it at bars, at pool halls, at restaurants. They don't even really take the time to look around anymore. Like I remember a time not even 6, 7 years ago when you would never hear that in public. And a lot of the people who I hear using the N word when they think I'm not listening or when they think I'm not near them, these are people with whom I've already had conversations before where they've said, I'm not racist. And I've said, I believe you. I don't think you are racist. Now, one of my viewpoints has always been if you're constantly having to turn around and say, I'm not racist, you're a racist. That's just the way it is. If you're constantly having to explain your actions, then you're doing racist things. But these are people who have in the past assured me that they're not racist. And then I hear them telling a story about a black person doing something on a job site or at their home or what have you. And they bust out the N word with the hard R. And every time it's like, you know how it feels when you hear that word. It's nails on a chalkboard. It's just it's like there's like a biological response that you get. If you didn't grow up around that being a normal word, it really it hits you in a certain way. There's an emotional response even when you're a white person. I can't imagine what that emotional response is if you are a black person, and especially if you're the person to whom or to if you're the person being referred to at the moment. I can't imagine what that feels like and what that jolt must be like um, of adrenaline and just hot blood flow and emotion. Just especially if it's aimed at you, I just can't imagine what that feels like. Knowing how it feels like for me as a white person who just didn't grow up around it. It's just not normal. What I'm realizing, the point being, I've always lived in a super racist area and I didn't know it. The people I've always accepted and loved and respected and spent time with and had conversations with, gone hunting or camping with, gone shooting with, what have you, it it, it was always verboten to say words like that. Nobody said the words or any of those epithets. They just were not used, and if they were, it was part of a joke that may not have been funny, but at least it was in the context of a joke, and you knew the person did not mean it at the end of the day. Now what I'm seeing is people mean it, and they're saying it, and they're not afraid to say it, and that's coming straight from the top. It's the permission is being given straight from the top to start talking like that as a society. And I'm not used to my town being full of people who are um, so disgusting. But I'm realizing that the truth is I've always been around these people. And maybe you have too. Maybe your community is full of racist and you didn't realize it. I think a lot of us are realizing that right now. I think a lot of us are feeling really confused about who have I been living amongst my whole life? How is it possible that enough people are willing to ignore all of these clear dog whistles and allow elections to go the way that they've gone recently, or at least before those special elections in 2025? The sad truth is, there's a huge proportion of us that is a racist country. And I never wanted to believe that. And I'm 44 years old, and I'm just now realizing and accepting that my own area is completely full of racists. Racists who will turn around and say I'm not racist. Now, here's my big problem with that is number one, if you are racist, accept it, admit it, move on, wear it like a badge. But don't turn around and constantly say, I'm not racist, when you clearly are. And here's a litmus test for you. Do you ever use the N word with a hard R and really mean it towards somebody, whether they're in the room or not? You are a racist. You don't get to turn around and say, I'm not a racist when you do that, especially if it's a habit, if it's something you've done many, many times in your life. If you are the kind of person who will quickly and easily believe any factoid that you hear about a certain racial group being more criminal or um, or more unacceptable in our society or less prone to acclimating to our society. What's the word, babe? Assimilating. assimilating. If you are the type of person who believes that people from other countries cannot assimilate, or just that you believe that they absolutely should 100%, and that they should not be allowed to bring any of their customs or their culture to the United States, you are a racist. You don't get to believe that and say, I'm not a racist. So you have to let that go. I mean, that's just wear it like a badge. Go ahead and accept it. It's the unfortunate truth. It's sad that we've been given that permission from the top. And I don't know if it's reversible, because when you behave like that, nobody remembers when you apologized. They remember what you did. And that sucks, but that's just the way that humans work. Um Obviously this is a hard one for me to even get all the way out. It really is. But here's what I'm going to finish with at my own peril, right? Is um what I believe is that everybody has some racism in their heart. There might be the rare monk who lives in the Himalayas and has spent the last 20 years ruminating and meditating to get rid of all of the bias in their heart or something like that. But we're talking about like 1 in 10 million, right? And I'll explain what I mean. And I will own this. I believe, and I don't think I'm that far off base here to most folks. I think we all have some racism in our heart, and or at least bias. And the reason that I say that is biologically and in the memory of our DNA. Obviously, we used to be in a tribal system. Obviously, when someone came up from a different tribe with which we were unfamiliar, especially if they were holding weapons or had war paint on their face, if we saw that someone was wearing clothes that we were unfamiliar with, doing dances we were unfamiliar with, saying words we didn't understand, had a different skin color than us, indeed, um, although that would have been rare back then just because of how far people could travel. The point being, in a tribal system, you have to immediately be wary and suspicious of anybody who doesn't look, act, talk like you. And that's just an ancient survival thing. If another tribe walked up, especially if the group was bigger than your group, you very well may be about to be conquered, conquested, beaten to a bloody pulp. So you had to be careful of the other. And I think that biologically we have that built in, but I think it's no longer necessary. So I think it's vestigial, and I think very much like any vestigial organ or whatnot, it's easy to ignore until it becomes a problem. And for most people, we just ignore it. We just go about our day. We don't even notice when somebody walks by who is of a different color. We don't certainly don't feel like attacking people just because they look different than us, anything like that. But we might build up little biases based upon personal experience, particularly when we're younger. Now, I grew up across from an Indian reservation. My middle school was literally directly across the street from an Indian reservation. And I also lived in two different areas that could be called the ghetto when I was in California, predominantly African American neighborhoods, Back then, we just called them the ghettos. And I also lived in San Diego for and Northern California for an extended period of time. And at the middle school, I was constantly bullied by the Indian kids. I had alopecia, so I didn't grow, my hair started falling out at a young age. And the kids on the res had stray dogs that were always running around. And because they were stray dogs, they often had mange. I didn't even know what mange was. We had dogs. My friends all had dogs, but I'd never seen a dog with mange. I didn't even know what that word meant. So these Indian kids, though, they would always laugh at me and say that I had mange. And sometimes they would beat me up, or they would, bump me off of the monkey bars and take them, or the swings, or the basketball court. You were playing here, get off here, white boy, what have you. So I developed a bit of a what you would definitely call a bias or a prejudice against that specific tribe of Native American folks. I just did because they were always mean to me at school. Um, as I grew up later on, obviously, and when I was 18, 19, 20 years old, I wound up hanging out with people on the res and made some of the best friends I've ever had in my life. And I mean that. Some of the closest, like, people that I've told things I wouldn't tell anybody else, people who helped me become a man and learn a lot of lessons and toughen me up, all kinds of stuff. But there was a period of time where I just flat out hated Indian kids because they seemed to all be mean to me at school. To me, that was at the time a valid prejudice. I've grown out of it. When I was in Northern California, I this is just a fact. Almost every single time someone would do something extremely dangerous in traffic and cut me off to where I almost had to slam into the guardrail, or would, almost rear end me, or would, when I was on my motorcycle, they would frequently almost slam into me. A lot of the time when I looked, it happened to be an Asian person. Now, when you put some logic into it, you realize, yeah, that's just because there are a ton of Asian people who lived in the area I lived in. So it wasn't that Asians are bad drivers. It's just that a lot of people are bad drivers, and there happened to be a ton of Asians around me. That was just it. But I developed a prejudice towards Asians and the way that they drive. And one of the things I used to say back then all the time was, how is it possible that they make all the cars, but they can't figure out how to drive them? That is a racist ass thing to say. And I thought it was hilarious. And a lot of my friends thought it was hilarious. I eventually move out of an area that has tons of Asians. I'm still getting cut off. I'm still almost getting hit on my motorcycle. I'm still almost getting rear ended. And guess what? The folks aren't Asian. So again, prejudice goes away. But the prejudice existed while I was in that particular situation. Um, so in any event, I'll spare you. But yeah, I think that there are reasons that people develop prejudices where they feel that they're perfectly warranted in the moment, and you can't blame them for feeling that way without removing them from the situation and showing them from a God's eye view what's really happening and why that is so silly, why it just doesn't make any sense. So, as someone who wants to be a reasonable person and someone who wants to be on the side of equity and equality, and who is staunchly against racism, to also have to understand that it comes from an honest place sometimes puts you in a real mind kind of place. But there are certain people, like the woman in the minivan that I saw tonight, who just have absolutely no solid reason to behave that way, or say what she said, or get so angry when she's the one who's in the wrong. And it was just a really weird thing to see. It was a weird thing to participate in. And as I was leaving the situation, the number one thing that I wished was I immediately thought, I wish Tizzy could have seen this. I wish somebody would have gotten some kind of footage of this so that we could do the whole, who is this woman thing, because I think she should be embarrassed. And I think that there's just no place for that in Arizona. I don't think that the majority of people in this area, while a lot would agree with that woman, those people are wrong, in my opinion. And the other people should start realizing that we need to call these people out in public. When you're using words like that, we need to tell these people. We can't just acquiesce. We can't just allow it to happen and give them tacit approval by not saying anything. We kind of have to start calling people out, and it's uncomfortable. It's awkward. It sucks. It puts you in a position where you're policing, and none of us want to be in that situation. And I certainly am not suggesting anybody has the right to start a fight over it or to get violent over it or anything like that. Um, but I think that if we know somebody really well, we've talked to them 30, 40 times, we've seen them at the lounge 100 times, we know each other by name, and they're across the room and you hear them really say a word like that loud enough for everybody to hear, you should have the balls to go up and say to that person, hey, I know that it's 2026, but just because it seems like it's okay to use those words out loud, it's still not. This is America. You are allowed to have your free speech and say what you want when you're at home, and even say what you want in public, but accept the ramifications. Accept the fact that you are now going to be known as a racist and that you don't get to turn around later on and say, I may have used that word, but I'm not a racist. You don't get to do that. And let's not let them do that, guys. Just don't let people get away with it like that. You have to at least express to them that people noticed, people heard what they said, and that it's not okay. And especially if there's kids around, you need to say, it's not okay to talk like that in front of my kid. Take the initiative. Don't start a fight. Maintain the friendship. Say it politely. And again, this is America. You're allowed to say what you want, but decency, guys. Just be decent. It's indecent to use words like that in public, especially with children around, no matter how you feel, and no matter whether the people around you agree or not. It really doesn't matter. So that's what I came here to say tonight, and I hope I said something of value. Um, yeah, that's all I got to say. Weird thing that happened tonight. Thank you guys for thank you for your attention. Thank you for your time. Please remember to like, subscribe. Really, hit subscribe right now. If you made it this far, hit the subscribe button. Please hit the like button right there. It's really helpful. Really helps me a lot. Please comment and please share. Thank you for being here for Reason Rises. I've got a really good episode of Draining the Zone coming up tomorrow. You don't want to miss that. So stick with this channel. Do subscribe. Have a wonderful night. Keep the hate out of your heart. And let's just try and remember we all used to be working to make this a better place. And everybody claims that's what they want. If you're going to claim that's what you want, work towards it. Put in the work. Thank you guys so much. We'll talk to you soon.